Blessed to be a part of your day. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Hey, if you miss any of our broadcasts, like our exclusive interview with Brian Kilmeade, that's right, the Brian Kilmeade. You can check out our podcast at KIDOTalkRadio.com. We are at the Ambrose School. It has been a while. We are so grateful to be back here in Meridian, Idaho, literally just down the road, very easy to get to. Locust Grove and Chinden, just past Eagle Road, if you're coming from that place called Boise. If you're coming from, well, in my opinion, the good place, Star, Meridian, Nampa, Caldwell, just right down the road here. By the way, Pacific Office Automation, now in Boise, Pacific Office Automation, problem solved, pacificoffice.com. Joining us once again, Mr. Davies Owens, Head of Vision and Advancement. And, Davies, you've got Feed the Need going on here. We catch you guys on social media. We catch you guys on the television. Great to have you on the radio. And not only are the kids feeding folks that will be fed thanks to our friends at the Boise Rescue Mission, but people listening right now throughout the day can stop by, check out the Ambrose School, and really feed the need.
We would love to have. I'm sitting right here next to us, Kevin, these giant blue barrels that we're collecting food items, non-perishables for the Boise Rescue Mission. We've got a coin drive going on, and all of that helps to go directly to meet the needs of Idahoans around our country, around our community, I should say. 1 in 6, I think, children, 72,000, need something to eat every night. So it's a real need. And we are super grateful for our partnership with Homestead Ministries. We got Tom Ridman sitting here, who's founder and creator of this amazing process of taking dried beans, mixing them with spices, vacuum sealing them, and creating a very healthy, high-protein meal that is a blessing to many. So,
Tom, good to have you back. Let's talk a little bit about it. Good morning.
Good morning.
So where did this idea come up with? And you got the kids working. Of course, they're always working here.
Yeah. Well, today actually is a celebration for us. This is our 4th annual visit down here from what we call the beautiful Palouse. It's up south of Spokane, about 60 miles. And I'm a grain merchant by trade, so it was just kind of a natural when we thought that there was so much product around and there was so much need for the hungry that we had to go ahead and put it into bags and make soups. We've held out quite a ways, and right now with Homestead Ministries, today we're going to make actually 90,000 meals with the students here at Ambrose.
90,000 meals.
Correct.
That's almost the population of Meridian, Idaho.
all in about 7 hours of work.
Right. And how does that play into the education process?
Well, as we were saying earlier, if people caught that earlier segment, we believe that education is as much formation as information, meaning that it's important to not just part of shaping and forming, which is what we do at CORE, is what is it that our children love. And we want them to not just think about or know the memorize verses on serving. We want them to get their hands dirty, so to speak, and get in this gym and actually have that tangible experience of pouring these beans into these funnels, mixing up spices, sealing them up, putting a label on it, and knowing that they just actually touched an item that is going to go directly to meet a need.
Right here in the Treasure Valley.
Right here in the Treasure Valley.
Through the Boise Rescue Mission.
That's exactly right.
That is amazing. Tom, can you go over the process a little bit more?
What we do is we utilize the students here in Ambrose, and what we do is we actually bring in the raw product, and we have spices that are just in boxes. We mix all the spices together, then we put each in individual packages. Whereas one package of our split pea soup, it comes complete with the seasoning and the instructions on it to go ahead and cook it, and it'll feed 6 people. Then we have a hamburger substitute, which is a lentil, which is locally grown in our area also. You mix it together, it's a hamburger substitute again, and it can make enchiladas and tacos, and it'll actually make 12 servings. So this is what the kids are going to be very excited to. This is our 4th, like I said before, it's our 4th annual event. The kids that were here 3 and 4 years ago, this has turned into a very much of an event that they look forward to.
Homestead Ministries. Tell us a little bit about that.
Well, we actually just started our 5th year, and as I mentioned before, is that we have just peaked at 900,000 meals, and we're really wanting to stay small, make sure that we keep focused, and we want to make sure that we're doing what we feel that God's leading us to do.
What don't we know about agriculture in Idaho? Those of us that just go to the store, like yours truly. What I mean, just hearing what the grades of the mixtures. So what don't we know about the industry of agriculture, sir?
Well, the thing is that with agriculture in general it's a very honorable profession. It's except for a couple of them, it's one of the oldest professions, if you know what I mean. But with ag in Idaho is that there's a lot of people out there that this is how they derive their income, and it is a very big economy that does drive a lot of Idaho. And when we go ahead and bring this ag to us at Homestead through Ambrose, is that we can take a lot of the product that is very cheap in its raw form, we mix it together, we make something valuable that people can go ahead and use to eat on a daily basis.
Right, and again, that this goes to real Idaho families, real food, and it serves education. I don't know how much more you can do.
It seems like it's a perfect mix, which is why we love having Tom and his team down here. I think we're going to try to live stream this later today on the Ambrose Facebook page, and you can see it looks like a full factory. Over the course of the day, about 600 students and parents coming through here. I mean, it's a lot of hands moving. We had a team from Wells Fargo coming in.
Right.
And it's just beautiful to see. I mean, to leave and know you've made a tangible difference.
I'm going to ask you guys to stand by from your house to the White House to Washington, D.C., from Idaho to Washington. Our great friend Stephen Moore joining us, economist, and celebrating the day his big book comes out about he and Larry Kudlow and others created this great economy. Stephen Moore, thank you for saving America along with the president. Good morning.
Hey, good morning, Kevin. Yeah, the book is Trumponomics, just came out, and it's a great stocking stuffer for Christmas. And, I'm smiling this morning because we just got this amazing jobs report, 250,000 more jobs added, unemployment rate, the lowest it's been in decades, literally, and more people entering the workforce. We have record high consumer confidence. I mean, it's got to be like I'm almost getting tired of winning.
Well, after 8 years of Obama, I don't know if we can get tired of winning. You're right, though. It's strange how the narrative has changed when we roll along with this. Stephen Moore, how bad was the previous administration's economy, and did it make your job easier?
It did. Look, I mean, there's a rule in life that you always want to succeed a failure. And, look, I think Barack Obama did the best he could. I think he meant well. He tried a lot of things. They just didn't work very well. It wasn't a total failure. I mean, we did get out of the recession, but it was just a really weakling recovery. And we looked around the country, when I was campaigning with Trump, and we talk a lot about this in the book, Trumponomics, that I wrote with Art Laffer. By the way, Larry Kudlow was going to be our co-author of that book, but of course he got a higher calling halfway through the book. He went to the White House, and we couldn't have him as a co-author when he was over at the White House, but he's with us in spirit on this. And we always told Donald Trump, look, the economy isn't running out of gas. It's never been pumped with the gas in the first place. So if you put the business principles in place in the White House, you're going to see the biggest spurt of growth you ever saw. And that's what we've seen. I mean, when the last year of Obama, the economy grew at 1.5%. Now we're going at 4, close to 4. I mean, that's a spectacular, but that's the difference between going 15 miles an hour down the highway and 40 miles an hour down the highway. It just feels a lot better. You get where you're going a lot quicker at 40 miles per hour than 15.
Our great friend Stephen Moore joining us, Trumponomics, his new book out today on Amazon.com, Barnes & Noble, and other places. What was it like when you met the president? Were you originally a Trump guy?
No, I mean, this is, thanks for asking. The first chapter of the book is called Meeting Trump. When we sat down with him, and I think it was very early 2016 when the campaign was just getting rolling. And I did not have a positive impression of Donald Trump before I walked in the room and met him. I thought he was kind of blowhard. I thought he was the whole presidential run I thought was a publicity stunt, frankly. And we walked in and we spent about an hour with him. Larry Kudlow and Art Laffer was not at that first meeting, and it was he is an incredibly charming, personable, gracious, attentive person. He's fun to be around. He is larger than life. I've been around, I knew Reagan. I knew, I've spent some time with Bill Clinton, and he had that X factor, that just lights up a room when he walks in. And that's important. People want a president who cares about people. And Trump loves people. That's the other thing about Donald Trump. He loves people. He loves being on the campaign. I never saw somebody who liked campaign as much as Donald Trump because he loves to go out and meet people. That's why he does the rallies. He likes to get out of the White House and go meet the people all across the country, whether it's in Charleston, West Virginia, or North Carolina, or those states like Ohio and Pennsylvania and Michigan that hadn't gone Republican in years and years that flipped over to Trump. So, very. I don't know if you've met him, Kevin, in person, but he is a really likable guy.
Well, and Stephen Moore, Trumponomics, the press they hate him.
The press?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, I've never seen anything like it. But, I got to say this. Look, the media hates Trump, and it's so over the top. I was on CNN the other night. I'm with Fake News now, as you know. And, they were talking for 20 minutes about how Trump is a racist and he hates women and he's a Jew hater and this and that. I mean, it was just the most outrageous, attacks against the president of the United States. And, but that being said, Trump, during the campaign especially, I've never seen anybody who works the press. He played the press like a fiddle. He was on the front page. Think about this, He was on the front page of every newspaper every single day for a year and a half. And sometimes he would say outrageous things just to get, on the front page of the newspapers. But he did it very effectively in terms of crowding out the message of any other candidate who was running. And so to some extent, the press hates him, but he used the media in a very effective way. One thing that's really interesting about that campaign, I've been, kind of thinking back about this. The liberals love to say, we got to take money out of politics. Everybody's buying elections. Do you know how much money Donald Trump spent on that campaign? Almost nothing.
Right.
He didn't have to. I mean, Jeb Bush, who I love Jeb Bush, he spent $100 million and got, 3% of the vote. Trump effectively spent a couple $1 million and blew everybody else away. So he proves that money is not what leads to being elected president.
Stephen Moore joining us, Trumponomics. By the way, not only where can we get your book, but where can people get a hold of you?
Well, go to heritage.org. I want to come out to Idaho. Sometime this winter, maybe go skiing, and I want to do a book signing there. So I'm going to talk to you about that, Kevin, and maybe we can set something up. But go to heritage.org. That's where all my stuff is. And the book is now out. It's on you go to Amazon, you can get it. It's a fun read. People say, I've talked to some people say, I don't really like economics. It's like, this is not really an economics book. It's really about what is Trump like? Why is he doing what he's doing? How is he succeeding? It's more of a history of what happened and how it happened rather than, it's not complicated economic formulas or anything like that. It's common sense economics, which is what this country has needed for a long time.
Well, Mr. Moore, when you come out to Idaho, you let me know. We'll promote the heck out of your book signing. We'll have the banners in the tent, and we'll make it a station event, and you can get some skiing in and sell some books. We always appreciate it. Last time you were out here was with the Freedom Foundation. I know it's been a while.
Yeah, well, we'll do it again, and thanks for having me on. And you got to just be smiling all day today with this blockbuster jobs report. The economy is firing on all cylinders, my friend.
Stephen Moore, Trumponomics. Thank you, sir. You have a great day.
You too. Have a great weekend.
Our great friend Stephen Moore coming to Idaho. We are back. Coming up next, more from the Ambrose School and what you can do to feed the need. Kevin Miller, KIDO Talk Radio. And KIDO Talk Radio, Kevin Miller in the morning at the Ambrose School. Phone numbers 580-5436, 580-KIDO. Davies Owens with us once again, Davies, and feed the need. What can people do to help?
Yeah, Kevin, we're turning our gym into a food packing warehouse. We got a lot of busy hands here, but we would love people in the community that have a heart for the hungry in Idaho and in our Treasure Valley. Stop by 6100 North Locust Grove. We're looking at 2 big barrels here. They're plenty of room for dropping off non-perishable food items, and we've got, if you get extra coins under the seat of your car, rummage around, those coins can be turned into covering the cost of the meals that we're preparing today and go directly to meet the needs of hungry in Idaho.
Indeed. Of course, you're located Locust Grove
and Chinden.
Yes.
In
Meridian.
In Meridian.
Very
you
easy
like
to find.
making that point, Kevin, don't you?
Maybe
Tammy would be proud of you.
I have the Meridian bias, having been a former resident of Meridian, now living in Star, Idaho. In the governor's neighborhood. Well, everybody in Star lives in the governor's neighborhood. So, but by the way, speaking of which, joining us now, our surprise mystery guest is Governor Bush. Governor, we were just talking about beautiful Star, Idaho.
Yeah.
Good to have you with us, sir.
Well, it's good to be with you. Kevin's been way too long.
I know, sir. The most charismatic person I've met in my life. You.
Oh, bless you.
No,
All
really,
right.
really.
Oh, sure. Now you tell me now that I only got 65 days left.
You know, Governor, every time I try to talk to you, you go, quit getting mushy on me, Miller. But we talk about the great run you've had since 1972, being a public servant in your state, the tremendous growth, getting us through the recession, being on all these goofy talk shows. Your thoughts, sir?
Well, it's in my parlance, it's been quite a ride. You're right. 4 years in the state legislature, and then 14 years as lieutenant governor, 6 years in the United States Congress, and now 12 years as governor. It's really been quite an experience. Plus my 30 years in the private sector. So 25 races,
Right.
49 opponents.
Right.
Seen a lot of changes. Seen an awful lot of changes. Not as much. I want to tell you a little story about my grandmother. Daisy McDermott was her name. She was a school teacher, and she told us kids a story when she lived with my folks. Both of my grandparents died in my parents' living room because they didn't believe it was anybody else's job to take care of them. And so Grandma was living with my mom and dad up in Weiser. We went up there to celebrate, I think it was her 82nd or 83rd birthday. And she kept saying, kids, I've had quite a life. I've had quite a life. She says, I faintly remember coming out from someplace in Illinois to Kobe, Kansas in a covered wagon. And she says, and then here a couple of years ago, I watched man walk on the moon. She said, I've had quite a life. Well, mine hasn't been quite that dramatic, but I have seen a lot of changes, where there's neighborhoods everywhere. Now, we used to have a dairy on the corner of Cloverdale and Franklin Road, 84 cows. We had to milk those cows every night and every morning. It's like getting a tattoo, You just can't get away from it. It's going to be there. And Cloverdale and Franklin in those days was so far out in the country, we went back toward town to hunt.
Right.
Because that's where all the farm ground was, and that's all gone now. But the growth has got its challenges, and I think the more popular Idaho becomes, the more people find out about Idaho. I think we have about 14,000 people just from California a year.
What do you make of the Californians coming in?
Well, it's of a concern. The Texans, my friends in Texas, Rick Perry, who's now the Secretary of Energy, and I used to do a little bantering back and forth about who was going to get the most people out of California, the most companies to move. And
right.
We've had our share, but Rick was very aggressive about it, and he always used to brag about Texas this and Texas that. But he says, it changes the politics. In fact, he says Austin and some of those bigger cities in Texas now have gone very progressive, if you can call it that.
Yeah, we call it that, sir. We call it the libs.
Yeah, me too.
Governor Otter joining us here at the Ambrose School. We've got a lot to talk about. Governor, you came in, you talked to our friend Davies Owens and said, you know all about this school, about Latin and everything else. You remember from the very beginning of this school.
Yeah, well, when it was down in Garden City.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And the headmaster at that time, as I recall, was a lawyer.
Yeah, early on. And then David Goodwin was the former HP guy who
Yeah.
transitioned to that role. And you remember the black hat, apparently, that was given
I
you back
do.
then.
I still have
yeah,
that black
the
hat.
famous cowboy hat, yeah. Back when we were Foundations Academy, way back in the day.
Yeah, it was quite a presentation.
I bet it was.
I'll tell you, the education and the culture, the values that are established at these schools. I support a big school, a brand new school just down the street here from you.
That's right.
At Holy Apostles Parish.
Ignatius, yeah.
And St. Ignatius is. I just watch kids go in there, and they if they're struggling,
Yeah.
they get turned around. So there's a lot to be said
Yeah, Governor, I always say it's amazing. 16,000 hours for a typical kid in school between kindergarten and 12th grade. So no matter where you're in school, it's going to make an impact on who you become.
Between kindergarten and what?
Between your kindergarten year and your senior year of high school, the average American kid spends about 16,000 hours in a school building. More hours than you probably spend about anywhere else, and maybe even asleep. And it's
that's why it's so important. You know, I look back at some of the things that I've done. I don't know. Have you ever heard of the National Guard Youth Challenge?
I have. We want to go up to the school, by the way. We're trying to work on that.
Oh, great!
Yeah.
You'll love it. But every portal that we can establish for education is, and I'm proud of the fact that we've created 2 community colleges.
Yes, sir.
During my time, you know, we opened the College of Western Idaho in 2009 with 1,500 students. There's now 33,000 there. I think the same thing's going to happen to the College of Eastern Idaho in Idaho Falls. It's just terribly important that.
Well, you're a product of education. We're going to talk to you next, if that's okay, sir.
Oh, you bet.
Okay. When you're not around, I can say whatever I want, but when you're around, I got to stay in line.
I hear you. Well, you know, I say the same thing about you.
More with Governor Otter coming up next from the Ambrose School of Traffic and Weather Together. Good morning, Dave.
Evans, Eric Everett.
And more coming up next with Governor Otter, KIDO Talk Radio. Good morning, Maggie.
Good morning, Kevin.
And let's go to Rachel Sutherland joining us now. Rachel, the latest on the president and the caravan.
Hi, Kevin.
Hi, good morning. What's the latest with the president and on the caravan and immigration, ma'am?
Well, actually, a lot has started to break just over the past few minutes because there's been some deployment orders signed by Secretary Mattis. It's sending 1,000 troops in this first wave to locations in Texas, near the McAllen area, in Brownsville, the distance between the two, and also the California border. We're checking to see if there's going to be any sent to Arizona. Yeah. I think of note here in what we've learned from the Pentagon is that they are reiterating that these troops are going to be in the support role only, and that they're not going to be building tents, at least not in this first round. Now, this is the first preliminary deployment of troops, and at this point, they're not going to be building tents. You know, President Trump mentioned again yesterday in his speech at the White House that there's going to be these tent cities and that they were going to be held there, and that could still be the case, but as far as this first wave is concerned. And they also addressed the issue about the idea of migrants throwing rocks. A Pentagon spokesperson saying that, you know, just reiterating, again, the U.S. forces are support troops, but saying that they have the inherent right to defend themselves. But they didn't want to comment on any kind of hypothetical situations about use of force.
Rachel, I know you're on the story. We so appreciate you. And I'd say have a great weekend, but you're always working, ma'am.
Well, you too, Kevin, and I'm sure we'll be talking next week.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Rachel. Back once again. Davies Owens with us at the Ambrose School with our special guest, Governor Butch Otter. Governor, I have to ask you, as the keeper of the flame, you remember the beginnings of Micron, J.R. Simplot, all those folks that you've known that are not here with us.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on Mr. Simplot and what he would think of what's going on in the Treasure Valley today, sir?
Well, obviously, all the industry, all the people that are working, we're down to 2.7% unemployment, which still means there's, 22,000 people in Idaho out of work, but we still have 25,000 jobs that we can't fill. And that's why every portal of education that we can create, every opportunity for people to get the skills, we're in a skills deficit. And the more skills, the more bachelor degrees that we can, and more places that we can provide those opportunities. That's what's going to continue to build our workforce and continue to grow our economy. When I became governor, it was a $51.5 billion economy. Today, we're touching right at $69 billion.
Wow!
And so we saw some tough times. 8, 9, and 10, 2008, 9, and 10, those recession times when unemployment went to 9.2%. We had 100,000 people out of work. and 100,000 families that didn't know what they were going to do. They were looking for things like this. And so to see where we've been and where we've come, I have to admit that I've leaned on everything that I learned from the Joe Albertsons and the Jack Semplots, and a lot of the people that I met and became acquainted with along the way. In fact, I would tell you that until he died, even though Cease and I were in different parties, Cease Andrus would make no bones, as does Phil Batt, as does Dirk Kempthorne and Jim Risch, make no bones about calling me up and saying, "Hey, you're wrong on this, you're wrong on that," or, you know, you're doing this, why don't you try this? And so what you make of life is how well you can establish a good rapport with people, no matter what their persuasion is. What I see today really concerns me, and that's this personal dissatisfaction with each other, and they make these things very personal instead of saying, you know, I understand. We differ. We come from different value systems, and so, but they all had, in their own way, they all had civic virtue. I don't know that I would have been in the political world if it hadn't been for the encouragement of Jack Semplot. He said, you know, you've got to get in there, you've got to contribute. In fact, when I was the vice president of administration for the food division of the company,
right,
we ran a investigation, I guess you'd call it, and we had something like 80 of our employees that were on school boards. We had 6 or 7 mayors. Now, most of them were small town mayors, but county commissioners and folks that were actually involved in public policy. And getting the correct public policy is so important. So all of those things, I think, I don't know how what the annual sales of Simplot is now, but I remember when we hit $1 billion, and I think they're probably 4 or 5 times that now.
Governor Otter joining us here from the Ambrose School. Kevin Miller in the morning, KIDO Talk Radio. Governor, and we're going to let Davies jump in here in a second. Let's talk about the election coming up. Last time we saw you at the primary, you and Miss Lori. The last run, we're going to ask, you know, I've asked you this, what you're going to do afterwards. I know you're going to be working. You're always working. And you do real work, unlike some of us. But Brad Little worked with you for so many years. Now a chance to succeed you and the entire Republican ticket, sir, or a party that you've given so much to and you love so much.
Mm-hmm. Well, you know, we always have differences within our party. And I can remember as lieutenant governor presiding over the state senate, first time in 100 years. In fact, it was the 50th session, regular and extra session of the Idaho legislature. So it was 100 years, 1890. Fast forward to 1990, I presided over 21 Republicans and 21 Democrats in the state senate. So as lieutenant governor, I'm required to vote in case the senate is divided, equally divided. And I voted more times in the first in the first 2 weeks than all lieutenant governors before me put together voted. So I've seen some big changes. I think we have a strong party, but I think sometimes, you know, the stronger you get, the bigger you get, the more fractions come in the party, and that's okay as long as we don't make it personal.
Right. You're right. Well, that gives us good fodder in the morning, by the way, the fractions.
I understand that. That's your bread and butter, Kevin. But you can have different points of view without being indifferent toward each other. And you know, I look back. One of my closest friends. This is going to be hard for you to believe. Maybe I've told you this before. When I was in Congress, was a guy by the name of Dennis Kucinich.
Cleveland, yes.
From Cleveland, the youngest mayor of Cleveland, Ohio ever. Well, then we served together for 6 years. And Dennis and I'll bet you 99 times out of 100, would have been an exaggeration to say that we voted separately.
Right.
Would not be an exaggeration. We never, I don't think we even voted the same on adjournment. But yet, Dennis and I were close. In fact, I remember when he called me up one day and he said, "Butch, I got somebody I want you to meet." So he brought in this beautiful young lady. And,
right.
And we sat and talked for a while, and then he left. And about 20 minutes later, he calls me on the phone, and he says, "You think I ought to ask her to marry me?" Now, this is
right.
This is a guy that, if you looked at the demeanor today, this is a guy that we should just not like each other. But we really, in fact, when he was running for president, I remember getting on the elevator one time. We were both in the Longworth office building. He was on the 4th floor, and I was on the 7th floor, and he was in the back. And of course, Dennis was kind of a short guy. And,
right.
And when
I can relate to being a short guy, Governor. Yes.
I didn't know that he was on the elevator, and pretty soon I hear this voice from the back of the elevator, and he said, "Butch, I'm really considering that if I get the nomination to ask you to run as my vice president, with me as my vice president." And I looked around, and I was the only Republican on the elevator. And I said, "Dennis, if that happens, the mystery of cold fusion is over." But that's the kind of, and we debate against each other,
right,
all the time,
right.
But we never made it personal.
Right, and then your friend Mike Pence doing very well, others doing very well. We know that you love the president, you support the president. It's amazing what's going on. But we're actually, Governor, and we're gonna talk Props 1 and 2 in a minute.
Okay.
But we've got our friend Davies Owens. Davies, he's been getting nervous here, Governor.
We're being surrounded, Kevin, by children wearing beautiful bright blue Feed the Need shirts. Yeah, Governor, I was giving the governor a hot cup of coffee.
There's a cup. By the way, they can get closer to us if you like.
They will be.
Okay.
So we've got about 560. What's happening, if you can't see what we're seeing, there are about 560 students that once a month, all of our K-12 students on this floor and upstairs gather together to sing our hymn of the month. So one of the things we think is important is that students learn the timeless hymns that have been a part of our Western tradition. And so we're going to all be singing. Well, Governor, you don't have to sing, but the students will be singing "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God." Kevin, you were here a couple years ago, and it is like...
Let's do Onward Christian Soldiers.
We can do that one, too. We'll do an encore for you. Yeah. We may even throw in a request hour here.
That's right, with the governor. Hey,
we'll make it happen. Yeah.
How about "Put Your Shoulder to the Wheel"?
Right.
See, the governor knows the great hymn.
He does.
So, there you go. Unfortunately, today, too many of us, kids today just don't know songs that shaped our culture. I mean, these are rich in words and meaning. So, all the classes learn these hymns, and so it's a pretty powerful thing. Here in just a minute, we're still filling up the room around us, Kevin, but it's going to happen in a minute.
There's nothing that makes family and brothers and sisters closer than music.
Absolutely.
You just think about it.
Yep.
You can't hardly not tap your toe. You can't hardly not kind of at least mouth the words.
So you were saying you were one of 11 siblings, right, Governor? Is that right? So you had
no, 9. There was 9.
Okay, 9 of you. So
Mom and Dad was 11.
So, all right. So there must have been a lot of singing in your home.
All the time. And my mother had a beautiful voice. And she loved to sing and clear up until she was 101 when she died.
Wow.
And she loved music.
Yeah.
And I don't know, there was a couple of my sisters, I think, that played the piano.
Yeah.
I played the guitar and sang, and I could do a lot of Merle Haggard stuff.
Exactly.
Tom T. Hall.
Well, you guys are like the Partridge Family. Yeah, it's a lost tradition today. Too many families are just all on their smartphones, and this idea of singing together is just
I went to Catholic schools almost all my life.
Yeah.
And the first grade was St. Patrick's Grade School in Corning, Kansas, and I graduated from what is now Bishop Kelly.
Right, of course.
And we sang all the time.
Yeah.
In fact, you could get almost a bigger letter on your letterman's jacket.
You could sing
if you were in the choir,
right,
than if you played football.
I'm with you. You're listening to 107.5 FM, 580 AM. We're at the Ambrose School. Governor Butch Otter joining us. We're going to talk about the election coming up, Props 1 and 2, and his legacy here in the state. Davies, you want to take it away? Are you going to introduce the song, or how's that going to work?
Yeah, we're look at this. Our team is about to lead the students. So, All right, we're ready over here. We're going to be singing Mighty Fortress is Our God. There we go.
Good morning.
Let's pray and then we will sing our hymn of the month. Heavenly Father, we thank you that we have this time together this morning to sing to you, to lift up our voices and praise to you. Lord, we thank you that you are a mighty fortress and that we can put all of our trust in you in spite of any problems or troubles that might come our way. We thank you, Lord, for the victory that you have won for us. Lord, we thank you for our visitors and guests today. We ask that you would bless this day and that you would give us happy and willing hearts to serve others, and that these meals would not only feed people's stomachs, Lord, but it would give them a hunger for you, and that you could fill that hunger with your word. In Jesus' name, amen. We're going to see the G, and then we can get started all together. Thank you.